Welcome everyone um, to Grown Ups Day, and a warm welcome to our participants, and especially to our speaker and team. I heard there are two of them from Team Miracle. I welcome warm welcome to you all, and thank you for joining us on Grown Ups Day. Here's a small intro to our sandbox. So, sandbox is a place for alternative learning and helping our kids to learn through homeschool. So, it's a place where we help kids. We make kids learn through their own talent, and we make sure that we shape their imagination and making them best ones, best candidates for the future, because they are our future, and imparting values in them through knowledge. And we mentor kids, giving a special attention to all of them, to each and individual, and guiding them also an examination point of view. Um, and we make sure, though it's just homeschool, we make sure that our language and mode of communication is not a barrier to them. We use every possible techniques, and we study, and we make sure that we reach to our kids in their level, uh, from the high level of IQ to every level that we possibly can endure in kids' mind, to make them shine bright. We just the imagination in a way of learning, that they'll come up with some creative thinking, thinking, and literally, it's a place where we bring out the possible talents of our kids. And Our founder is Mrs. Sulba Santuin, and who herself has a great experience in homeschooling, and she herself is a homeschooling mom, not just a founder here, but also a teacher. She has a great she has expertise in the background of she has good background of alternate education. And I hand over to introduce our speakers, and hand over the session to her.
Thank you so much, Usha, for the warm welcome. And I want to start by saying that I just want everybody to imagine for a moment, okay, that what is the impossible thing that you can think of? And imagine if that impossible thing, say if you're looking at imagining stars, or you're imagining an object, and that object is actually not near you, but imagine what would happen if you can place that object right in the space where you are. Seems exciting, right? And seems impossible also, right? So we have somebody with us today, and it is indeed our honor to welcome Omkar Pimple, who is the founder of Miracle.io. It's a German-based company, and he specializes in high-tech. He's also a high-tech speaker, and he has a vast experience. So I'm not going to do the talking today, fortunately, and I'm going to let Omkar do the talking. So Omkar, over to you. Thank you so much for joining. And he's joined us all the way from Germany. Thank you, Omkar.
Thank you very much, Sulba, and thank you, Team Sandbox, for having me here. It's a great pleasure to be here. I think we've been in touch with Sulba for quite some time, and we've been exchanging thoughts and ideas, and it's been very, very inspiring to see the depths of creativity that I think the Sandbox team has been putting forward, and sort of all the efforts as well to sort of really take education where it should be. And I think today, for many reasons, the status quo of education out there is not up to the mark. And I think it's empowering to see all of us taking matters in our own hands, saying that, yeah, we want our children to get the best education possible, and we will do it ourselves if the system around us is not there yet. So I think that's very empowering, and I think it's very inspiring as well. So it's a great pleasure to be here with all of you and share ideas and thoughts and experiences over here. So before we start, I just wanted to get a quick check-in of who we have here. So I think, of course, we have the parents, I see. Do we also have the students as well as a part of this call?
Yes.
Great, excellent. And I thought instead of having a one-directional lecture or a session, I thought let's have an interactive session, right? And I think for me, it's more important to ask questions than to have the answers to questions. And therefore, today's session is in the format of an AMA, which stands for Ask Me Anything. So I'm a bit nervous, I have to admit, because Ask Me Anything is a very broad scope. But let's do this. I think it's going to be fun, and I think I really look forward to interacting with all of you. So please feel free to take part over here. We have actually, before we get started, I also wanted to share my screen so we have something common for all of us. So I think, Sulba, if you're the host, you need to allow me to share my screen so I can.
Omkar, can you check if you can share your screen now? Or
Yes.
I can make you the host as well.
Yeah, no, I think now should be fine. I am able to share my screen. Are you able to see my screen, all of you?
Yes.
Great, excellent. Perfect. So here we are with Sandbox and Miracle.io. And today's session is an AMA, Ask Me Anything with me, Omkar. So maybe a quick brief background about what I do. So I'm the founder of CEO and Miracle.io. So we started this company 2 years ago. And before that, I was working in different domains, right? From logistics to e-commerce to banking to health and now education. And along the way, 10 years of professional education, professional background, along the way, you try out different things and you realize that perhaps, banking is great. There's a lot of money there. Logistics is great. There's a lot of operational knowledge that you gain over there. Health is very important in our lives. But throughout the whole 10 years, I saw that perhaps the original calling that I had was for education, because along the way, I've been involved in academic research as well as my own education apps on the Play Store. One of them which crossed 5 million downloads across 180 countries. So that was a hobby project. I got lucky, I have to say. But I also really enjoyed seeing it grow over the last years. And that's when we decided to start a company. We decided to take some of the most challenging problems in education, which is a very core fundamental aspect. And it's one of the core fabrics of society today. The way we pass on knowledge to the next generation, basically, is how I see education. So our mission, our vision has been to be a company, or basically build a way for our civilization to transmit knowledge efficiently, experientially, and memorably, which are the three key aspects of any good knowledge transfer. And that's what we do at Miracle. We are an international team of technology leaders and education experts from Harvard and Stanford leadership as well. And we use experiential education, or rather we help educators scale experiential education, which is one of the hardest things, I'm sure, as all of you may have also seen in the past, to do it for all of our students effectively and regularly. How do we do this? Like I said, we bring experiential education to life in the world around you. So as Sulba briefly gave a brief overview, we are able to use technology like extended reality. So it is exactly what you think it is. We are able to extend reality that you are in with immersive interactions that have sights, sounds, and interactions. So we are able to stimulate all senses, and they are spatial as well. So we are also able to include the physical movement as a part of the learning experience. And we're able to do this anywhere in the world around you, in any corner of the world. So I won't talk much about this today. Just want to give an introduction. And this is who we are. This is our team today. And it's a total of 100+ years of global perspectives on different areas: technology, education, and learning science, but not only. So, of course, we have Dr. Stephen Koslin, who's from Harvard and Stanford. We have Smita, who's been working with the government of India for the last 30+ years in pharmaceuticals and microbiology. We have Dr. Killian, we have Dr. Safi, also academics and industry experts. and most importantly, we have our team, which is completely one of the biggest inspirations that I've had to build this company. And while building this company, it is like it has been great to see the progress that we've all made together as a group. And I think that's something that I wanted to really also highlight today. And like I've said, we've also worked on different kinds of educational areas and researches. So right from like basically calibrating the difficulty levels of concepts, of topics, and having a data science backed method to sort of do this. Understanding or rather implementing cognitive learning, which is how humans learn, using distributed artificial intelligence. So sort of, also finding ways to sort of simulate learning and sort of improve learning using these things. So quite a few different domains and different sort of facets on education and learning and technology we put together. So that's what we have today, and that's who we are. But I think many of you may wonder, okay, but how did this all start? And where did this start? Like, how did this begin, right? And I'd like to sort of start a bit with my stories, sort of walk backwards and start from where it started, right? As they say, start from the top. So this is a picture from 1995. So at that point, I was...
Omkar, sorry, I'm interrupting you. Have
Sure.
you changed your slide? Because
Yeah,
we are still stuck at the first one that has asked me anything.
Okay. I moved through a few slides actually. I'm not sure why we didn't. How about now? Can you see my screen?
Yeah, now we can see. Thanks.
Okay, you missed the introductory slides, but okay. Do you still see my slides? Now the team page?
No, we are at your multi-sensory stimulus thing.
Okay. Let me try to reshare. Perhaps it might be easier that way, because I think
Let
you
me know
made me
if
the
you want
host,
me
right?
to share that, okay?
Yeah. How about now?
Yeah, I can see your team about
Perfect.
us.
Great. So yeah, I walked through the team without you seeing the team, but that's the team. Okay, so continuing on, I wanted to, like I said, start off with from the top and start off with, okay, how did we get here? Like, how this is all great, and this is who we are today and what we're doing today. But where did it start? So I wanted to share this first picture with all of you. It's a picture of me from, I don't know, 1995. This was senior KG. I was born in Mumbai, and I grew up in Mumbai. And yeah, I think speaking and being on stage was something that I did from a long time ago somehow. And at this point, like I was living in Mumbai, and basically we were living in an area which had the beach very close by. And we also had an apartment which had a small terrace, like a really tiny open terrace, which really formed a lot of habits for me. Like, for example, stargazing and astronomy is one of the hobbies that I really pursued as a young child. And I think a large part of it was because I had this terrace right next in my apartment. And I think it's for me personally, I have anecdotal evidence about what a good environment can do for the development of a child and their education. And, I was lucky to sort of have these things around me that I was able to be inspired by. And I thought I'd quickly share that and sort of, build up from there. So this was 1995. This was me again in 2011. So this was me in college, actually. And at that point, I picked up, of course, I did some astronomy, but I also picked up music because at school, they had a few music teachers who I found inspiration in. And I picked up the guitar. I played eventually some different forms of music. And I played rock, I played some metal, so all the noisy stuff as well. And I played on stage and I had a great lot of fun. And unfortunately, as I started working started working in the industry, I started doing less fun things. But overall, all of this was basically a quick overview of my journey. And I thought, now having said that, that sets the context and understanding for everyone. Okay, today Omkar is working in technology and building in XR and everything else, but he also had a journey, right, from childhood until youth, and then now adulthood. And now, therefore, I introduce all of us to the AMA, so the Ask Me Anything section. Now, to give you a few sort of hints about what you can ask about, you can ask about anything, of course, but you can, of course, ask about career and work. So I'm sure there are parents and there are students here who may be wondering, okay, what do I want to do after I grow up, after I become an adult? What do I want to build in? What do I want to learn how to do? So for me personally, if you're interested in software, if you're interested in building apps, if you're interested in education, if you're interested in science, in building and growing teams, in using games as a part of a bonding activity or a learning activity, mobile, AI, metaverse, blockchain, all of these topics, if these are topics that you have heard about and would like to know more about, this is something that you can, of course, ask me about. I'm currently in Germany. I've been here for the last almost 7 years now. And many of you may also think about, oh, maybe I want to visit this country, whichever country it might be. It sounds very exciting, and it is exciting, but it can also have different aspects to it. So challenges, but also inspirations as well. So new people, languages, weather, food, cultures, everything. So feel free to ask anything about that part of my life as well. If you want to ask about hobbies, music, astronomy, gaming have been 3 of my main hobbies, I would say. I'm doing a few other things, but mainly these are the things that you can, of course, feel free to ask about, and I'm happy to share. And finally, if there's anything that is not coming in these categories, that is also very, very, very welcome to be asked about from this group. Having said that, before we begin, I wanted to also announce basically 2 things. So we will be giving out gifts today. So for people who will be asking questions. So there are 2 main categories for gifts. So one is the individual who asks the most questions, so quantity, but also the individual who asks the most interesting question, so quality. So we don't want to choose, we want to do both, right? So let's have the sessions begin. You can either type the question in the box. I prefer if you unmute yourself and you speak. It's more interactive that way. But if for whatever reason you'd like to type in the chat box instead, that's also fine. So having said that, I'll leave the mic to the attendees, and let's hear the first question.
Hello. Okay.
Hi,
Yes,
Hamza.
Asha.
Hello. So the question I have is, would you know what someone should study if they want to be a game designer in the future?
Mm-hmm. So when you say game designer, is it building games or programming games or visualizing how games look?
Visualizing.
Visualizing. Right. So there are a few courses and there are a few career paths for game designers. So there are 2-3 areas that I'd like to touch on as I walk into this answer. So part 1 is there are 2D games and there are 3D games, right? So 2D games are what you see on a screen. 3D games are typically in 3 dimensions. So these are the video games that you might see on the PlayStation or Xbox or computers and so on. And 2D games typically are more casual, but still at the same time very powerful. So one of the first questions that comes up is that. The second question that comes up is, within game design itself, there are many aspects. One part is, of course, the visual aspect of it. So how detailed like it's more detailed. Like you focus more on, for example, how a certain texture looks in the game. Like how does the grass look in the game, or how does the sky look in the game, or how does the skin of an animal in the game look. So textures basically within the game. So that's like, there are people who specialize in texture design, for example, like what happens when light falls on a particular texture, how does light reflect or make the texture shine, for example. And it has become very, very advanced. So I'm sure some of you, if you play video games of some sort, you must have seen the quality of graphics today and the quality of textures today. It's become almost photorealistic. So there is that part of the visual texture aspect. I'm just simplifying things to keep it very, very easy for all of us to understand. But we can talk in more detail later as well if you want to know more in detail. So then there is that's one part. There is another part of motion. So motion capture is another complete field. So capturing movements, for example. So if you've played games like anywhere where there's characters moving, for example. So Assassin's Creed, if someone has heard of that game. So there's a lot of climbing buildings in that game from a long time ago that is involved in that game. So how do characters move their bodies, for example, when they're climbing? What muscles are engaged when you're actually climbing, and how can those muscles be activated for their character that you're designing when they're moving or in motion? So that's another, let's say, path in game design that people can pursue. And one more path that I can think of is basically this, the designing the story, basically. How does information flow? How is the user taken through the journey of the protagonist, for example? What emotions do we want to create as a part of that gameplay? Because any gripping story, it's like a movie that you take part in, any game, right? So there are these are the three areas that you can sort of specialize in when you're in game development. And many people, interdisciplinary game designers, for example, who sometimes have a holistic view on all of these things. They might have a specialization, or they might have a leaning, let's say, but they are able to sort of switch between the whole spectrum of game design.
On that, so right now, I'm working on a project with a Minecraft server.
Great.
Maybe you want to make like a fantasy MMORPG. And so I'm getting some experience of this, stuff that you were talking about. So I've been put in charge of like making the structures, like the dungeons, towns, stuff like that.
Right.
But I've also, I'm also in the story writing part.
Right.
So,
that's great.
Helping out with quests and the basic lore. So,
and do you have some ideas already?
Yes, I do.
Great. And what theme are you looking at, generally speaking?
Fantasy, almost generic kind of fantasy type of stuff, dragons and
Dragons
dungeons.
and magic.
Great. That type of stuff.
Great. I think it's a very good start. I think I would start with the story first. And a theme first. Right? I think that gives you, it's a good tiebreaker, generally speaking, for any decision that you need to make. Should I use this color or should I use that color? Should I use this kind of a texture or should I use that kind of a texture? If you have a theme, it helps you answer these questions faster, because a lot of decisions have been made already with or by the theme. So, it's easier for you to move faster towards and make good progress as you construct this game and this storyline under it. I'd love to know a bit more about this. Maybe we can have a short chat afterwards as well.
Yeah, sure.
After the AMA. This is really interesting because I also played a lot of Minecraft. I made a bat cave in Minecraft.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so in Minecraft, I don't know if everyone knows about it, but you're able to connect blocks with electricity as well, and you can sort of do some basic
Redstone.
electronics, and not just basic, but people have made computers
Yeah.
also
My
within
brain's too
Minecraft.
small for redstone stuff, but
Yeah, it was difficult at the beginning, but it was really fun because then you could flip a switch and a door would open and the waterfall would stop, and then a bridge would come up and then the cave would open. So that kind of stuff you can do in Minecraft and other creative things as well. So glad to hear as well you do
thank you.
Minecraft.
All right, on to the next person.
Yes,
I
please.
think Kavya has raised her hand. And
Yeah.
Kavya, you could introduce yourself.
I wanted to ask the same question Ishan asked, but just in a little bit different way. So I would like to become a game tester, like from the ages of 10 and above. I would like to become a game tester. So if there are any companies who are accepting children of that age, I would like to test games. I would also like to visualize games.
Okay. Can I ask you a question, Kavya? What motivates you to choose this role or choose this, let's say, task?
I didn't get your question. Can you repeat?
Why do you want to pursue this task, or why do you want to pursue this role? Like, what makes you look for it?
So so for the last 1 year, I've really been into gaming a lot, and I found how interesting it could be. It's also part of my studies. So I would like to go into gaming for a future career.
Great. And what kind of games do you play or enjoy the most?
I enjoy, let's say, PvE or PvP games. So they are basically, player versus player and player versus enemy, because I love games with challenges, with bosses to fight. I love games with challenges because you don't know what's going to happen next. And also strategies. I love all these kinds of games.
Okay. And do you have some examples of these games that you play?
Yeah, so one is Roblox. It has a lot of these kinds of games.
Right.
And also some games on App Store or Play Store. Anyhow. And yeah, I'm still checking out games on Play Store. So I'm still looking for games on Play Store. So yeah, I mostly play on Roblox. Okay,
great. I think as a gamer myself, I think it's really great to see you being so involved in it. I think for many parents, I think for my parents at least, when they heard about the term video games, they really hated it. Right. And they're like, yeah, okay, this is not studies, and therefore you should optimize your time for studies, basically, is what their narrative was. So I think it's really great that you're encouraged to do this, because I think games can be very educative as well. Not all of them, of course, but quite a few of them are very, very effective for studying and also understanding and getting better at hand-eye coordination, getting better at thinking on your feet. As you said, Kavya, right, that you don't know what's going to come next. And it forces you to be alert and work with uncertainty, let's say. So I think personally for me, I find playing games of different kinds, very helpful in that sense. So I think it's great that you're already doing it this way. Now, to answer your question, how do you become a game tester? How old are you? Maybe last question from my side before I answer the question.
I wanted to say something. I just wanted to say something.
Sure, go ahead.
Even when I first started gaming, my mom was like, it is not studies. You should not get too into it, She was like not believing gaming. But then slowly I made her realize that gaming is not bad. It's not bad like she thought.
How did you make her realize that? Sorry, I'm asking you questions in my email, but
I don't really know. I just kept on saying, when my mom said, stop it now, it's not good, you should quit and all that, I was like, but mom, it's something I enjoy doing. Why should I quit something I enjoy doing? Just why should I quit?
So very good
question, slowly she realized when she actually saw the kinds of games I was playing, she realized that gaming is not bad.
Right. Great. I think so what I see is that you have a very powerful ability to convince people around you. So I think you can definitely build on that. That's great. It's really, it's a difficult skill, persuasiveness. Having said that, so like I said before, I think there are quite a few games that can be very, very useful for students. Not all of them are like that, of course, but many of them, quite a few of them can be very helpful and useful. Even if they may not immediately seem related to studies. Now, having said that, one question that I had for you, Kavya, was how old are you right now?
I'm 8 right now. I'm going to be 9 this year.
Okay, wow. And you're already playing Roblox on a regular basis. So I think while it's good to already know what you want to do, and it's also nice to look forward to doing something that you really enjoy on a different level, right? So like testing games while they're being built. So it gives you like you look forward to it, and you think that it's going to be a lot of fun, and it is fun. However, I worked with someone who was a game tester at some point, and it can be a very hardworking profession. Like you have to do the same things again and again and again and again and again, to make sure that people like you who eventually do end up playing the games have a very good time, right? So it's basically somebody has to go through a bad time so that everyone else can go through a good time. But that's the role of a tester in general.
That is true.
Yeah, and also for specifically for game testers, because right now we are also basically building mini games in education, and we see it's very similar. It's very rewarding, though, of course. Like it's a lot of hard work, but it's very rewarding because you see the joy that people get when they play the game for the first time that you have tested and made sure that it's a very great and beautiful experience.
Yeah, because like also in game testing, you have to be very precise. Your calculations have to be perfect. If you make a very tiny mistake, everything can go right down the drain.
Right, absolutely. And
all right. I'm so sorry, guys, to interrupt. Can we take some important questions, please? I mean, it's in the essence of times we have 2 or 3 questions lined up. So can we pick those up, please, Omkar?
No problems.
All right.
Sure, please do.
So because I ideally there are a lot of questions lined up. So the very first that I really would want to pick up is from Dola. She wants to understand how important is it to join a formal course or a college or a university which offered structured learning around gaming industry, and she follows it up with what courses would suit a candidate who is interested in visualizing the games, maybe in terms of graphics, software programming, animation, art, or maybe a full-fledged career perspective or a career package. That's what I understand.
Right. So thanks, Dola, for the question. I think it's a really well-structured question as well. So I'd like to also point that out. So there are quite a few universities or organizations that offer holistic game development or game building courses. So generally in game development, you will have design, of course, and you will have the actual development, bringing things to life, right? So depending on what leaning you have towards both, you can either choose one specialization or one focus, let's say, or you can do a bit of a hybrid sort of a course. So I know for a fact that there are specific schools and organizations that do game development programs. So these are typically 3-year courses, for example, in animation. Or they can also be a part of maybe some sort of a software engineering course with a specialization in game dev that can be for 4 years. And there are some short courses as well, which are, let's say, 6 months or 1 year, that sort of a thing. So it really depends on what exactly do you want to go for and learn. Many of these courses have tie-ups with industry or companies in the gaming space, basically, that come there to recruit and hire from that course. So basically, of course, nothing is guaranteed, but you have a good chance of getting and landing a job or landing a role as your first role very early, like at the age of 18, 19, maybe as soon as you're eligible to work, basically. So what I can do is I can maybe at the end of it send out a list of these schools. I think that'll be helpful. I don't remember them off the top of my head at the moment, but I can check in with my team who has been in touch with some of these schools, and I can pass it on to the group over here. I think generally speaking, if, for example, if you have, I like to think of it in terms of thinking styles, right? So I classify thinking styles in 4 broad groups. So one is analytical, second is structured or organizational, third is emotional, fourth is vision. And one is not better than the other. And it's just because you have one doesn't mean you don't have the other. You typically have a mix of these 4 thinking styles, and you may have a dominant thinking style. So generally speaking, and it's not a rule or guideline, it's my internal heuristic, is if you tend to have a more analytical thinking style and a structured thinking style, it can be like you can do well as a game programmer, for example, someone who writes code to make the game come alive, basically. Generally speaking, if you have a more vision or imagination driven thinking style and a more empathetic thinking style or emotional thinking style, you would do very well as a game storyboarder, basically, or a game story designer, or even a game graphic designer, visual artist, basically. And of course, all thinking styles support and mesh with each other. But very broadly, I would say that this could be a good way to choose. And like I said, just because you studied something doesn't mean that you can't do something else. I did not study MBA, but I have a business today. So I studied software engineering. So it's okay. So I would say that this is a good heuristic, plus doing what you want to do, just as Kavya also mentioned about. I think these are the 2 things that I would decide. Like I said, I'll pass on the schools, the list of schools that we know about on these areas. I'm happy to share that. I'll do that at the end of this call. Generally speaking, if you have someone as a mentor for software engineering, it helps a lot if you're a game programmer. And if you're doing game design or visual design, it helps to have some other people who are building game or doing game programming, because then you can create a team, like a bowler and batsman, for example, and you can actually build something together as a project together. Because that is a lot more powerful as an experience when you're learning new things, to actually try to apply them as soon as you learn them. So you build something along the way as well, beyond just that degree or that course. So that's what I would suggest as a part of this answer as well.
Yeah, Onkar, just to add on to that, will do the school institutes or these places take up interns, like these kids who are, I know most of them, and they are super talented actually. So do they take up interns where the kids can just go and maybe just observe the process? If you would know any people who are kids friendly, I would say, and who would give them a chance to just observe and understand it in more details, then you could just add those to the list as well. And
Absolutely.
We had a request from one of the parents saying that if you could add animation part of it also to the list to help us. Okay, Smita, you had a question. You had raised your hand.
Yeah, actually, my question was a lot which connected to what Dola had asked. So that's why I'm fine.
Okay.
I just needed to know. I mean, there's schools and connected to that. So that was answered.
Okay. I think we have a question from Hamza. Hamza, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
So if hi, my name is Hamza. Okay, so if I want to pursue my career as a food technologist, what are the things that I have to keep in mind? And if I have to take some kind of interns, what kind of interns for experience?
Food technologist, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
Great. It's a very good field to work in, because right now you may have heard about the economic situation out there due to the war in Russia, Ukraine, and so on. So food shortages is something that we face as a reality in the world today. So, and especially food waste is a very big topic, even in a country like India, where a large part of the population struggles on a day-to-day basis to have good quality or reasonable quality food on their table. So first of all, kudos on choosing this path. It's a very impactful path, and I think it's something that we will need going forward. So it's a relatively new field, food tech, as they say. And there are quite a few different companies within India, outside of India as well, that are working or building in this field. So off the top of my head, I know, for example, one of the areas is agri-tech, which is related to food. So it's basically about understanding what are good methods, technology-driven methods, in agriculture that can help us increase yield, for example, or reduce waste at the production level itself, and thereon. So you can, I think a good direction to think about is at which part of the supply chain of food would you like to focus on, perhaps? So is it at the production level, where on the agriculture level, where food is grown? Is it at the logistics level, where the food that is grown by farmers and producers is then shipped to the market? Is it at the preparation level, where you optimize, let's say, recipes or food preparation methods? Or is it at, let's say, the restaurant level or at the food vendor level, let's say, that you like to talk more about hygiene or preparation methods and so on? So I think broadly speaking, that's the chain that might be helpful to think about, which area you'd like to focus on, and then choose, let's say, a company or a path or an internship from there, depending on which of these areas you will focus on. Generally speaking, there's a lot of AI, for example, artificial intelligence in food tech and agri-tech. Like, I think one of our team members, Devansh, he was working on a project which was in the agri-tech space, so taking in weather and taking in weather forecasts and the kind of crops, let's say, that or kind of produce that your farm is expected to have, and sort of making predictions and making suggestions to optimize and to make sure that you get the maximum good yield from that production process. So it's a very interdisciplinary field with many different areas. So I wouldn't say there's a degree that says that teaches you food tech specifically, but I'm sure there are specific there are specific courses that you can take, like single courses that focus on these areas. I think supply chain probably is one of the areas that you would like to think, you would want to think about. And about the companies, again, I'll make sure that I'll send out a list of these things as well to you.
Yeah, if it could be like somewhere in India.
Yeah, I know of one in Jaipur. I don't know if they're still active. This was 2 years ago when I spoke to one of their founders. And I forgot the name. I can't recall the name at the moment. But it was in Jaipur, and they were trying to do exactly this. That how do you minimize the space that farms need by also building vertical farms, right? So, for example, in large cities like Mumbai or even Pune and everything, we're building vertically because space is we don't have as much space. I mean, we have a lot of space, but not as much usable space, let's say. Same thing in farms. How can we build efficient farms, vertical farms, and so on. One more thing that I can do is there is a museum here called the Futurium in Berlin. They have a section specifically on this, like the circular economy, about how food waste can be sort of put back into the cycle, into the chain, so that you minimize, let's say, the amount of food that you waste, essentially. So one weird example that I saw over there was you can use some food waste material to even make sneakers, like shoes, as an example. So these kind of things are being thought about as well, especially in universities, because that's where the research is focused on. But there is also a lot of companies that have started to enter this space. So I've noted that down. I will come back with some more information on this over here.
And just one more small question. When I was researching on this field, like now, if I need a job or somewhere anywhere, most of the places I saw, they were like, you need to at least be for 2 to 3 years, you should have some experience or something. So if I want to build experience, so like what kind of companies do I have to go in where you you start as a newbie?
Right. Yeah, I think right now, for a lot of companies, like training newbies and training new joiners is can be hard, because especially if they're small and if they have a lot of work going on, then it becomes they find it difficult to take in newbies and train them. However, there are many companies as well as universities that are happy to take trainees on board and sort of help them understand the area, help them understand the workflows and processes, and go from there. I directly am not aware of any institutes in this domain, food tech. But like I said, let me come back to you on this, and maybe I'm sure we'll find something that you can find helpful to go forward.
Okay, thank you.
No problems.
All right. So, hello, I'm Adrian. So, if I were to create a game, right, what audience would I target, and where would I say sell it or put it up for exhibition?
Right. So, sorry, I didn't catch your name. Could you say your name again?
Israel.
Adrian.
Israel.
Israel. Okay, great. Cool. So, which target or which audience do you target is the first question, right? And then where do you make this game available? Basically, that's the next question. So I'll answer the first question first. So there are, very broadly, you will have games for young students or young individuals, let's say from the age of 5 to 13, for example. 5 to 13 itself is a very big bracket, I would say. But just to keep it simple, let's say for the young age group below 13, then you have an age group for young adults. So let's say 13 or 15 to 20 or 21, typically. And then you have games for adults. Again, these are not rules. And for example, my mom plays these Gardenscapes that, our cousin who is 15 also plays. My mom is 55. So there are no rules. Like, games that are interactive and interesting to a young one will also sometimes be interesting to people from a different age group as well. So at the same time, you make a lot of decisions about how your game looks, how your game feels, what your story is like based on your age group. So I would suggest, why do you want to build this game? Maybe that's the first question.
Why do I want to build this game?
Yeah.
One for money.
Mm-hmm. Good.
And two, because I like playing games, and I would want to create my own game with my own story, with my own imagination.
Okay. One thing what I'd like to highlight is I still love playing games. But when I started building games, my relationship with gaming changed, because I realized how hard it is to build games. It's very rewarding again, right? So there's a lot of trial and error, but it's very rewarding in the end when you see it all come together. It's a really powerful feeling. So if one of the main intentions is to be creative, you can be creative regardless of what age group you're targeting. So then that part doesn't come in. If the second is to build a revenue source, let's say, of income, I think it's a very good approach as well. I would, in that case, target maybe young adults, because maybe they may have you might find it easier for them to pay for your game than, let's say, other age groups. Again, like there are online payments happening across the spectrum, but maximally you will find young adults having credit cards who make it's very easy for them to do and purchase your game easily. Thirdly, where do you put your game up? I would think, where is your audience? Is your audience on the Play Store? Is it on the App Store? Is it on Steam? Is it on Chrome? Apps and so on.
The game that I would make would probably be PC, because I myself am a PC gamer mostly. So I don't know, because all my friend groups are who play games basically are scattered across a lot of platforms. Steam is one of them, of course.
Okay.
So I don't really know. And I know that no gamer ever checks Microsoft Store for games.
So by method of elimination, you know where you don't want to post your game. So that's already a start. If you're focusing on PC, then I think Steam Store is a very good option to start off with. And anyway, just because you start on Steam doesn't mean you can't go anywhere else. Right?
Right.
So I think one thing that I would like to also suggest here, maybe as a final note on the topic, is try to find a small community of people who will test your game. Maybe Kavya can help you over here. Like if you can have people who are interested to help you, give you feedback on the game. I think that's very powerful, right? You want to know how your users find or how they feel when they play the game. Do they find it easy? Do they find it hard? Do they want more of it? Do they don't want more of it? So all of these things will help you a lot to shape your project and your game, and will help you, again, clarify ideas and qualify ideas to implement. Because you'll have a lot of ideas, but which one of them are what you want to focus on is also what a crucial question is. So I would start with Steam. Maybe start an audience, pick an audience that maybe is in the young adults. It's a good starting point. And 3-4 people who are engaged and dedicated to help you out on building this game, a small group of people, and then go from there. And at any point later, if you need some help, feel free to reach out as well.
All right, that pretty much sums it up. Thank you.
No problems. I think we have one more question from Dola.
Yeah.
Okay, many of the kids dream of settling in other countries. It would be interesting to hear the pathway you took to travel and work abroad. What was your journey like in that aspect? And did you always want to go abroad, or it just happened and you took up the opportunities? Very good question. So in 2013, I hadn't been outside of India. 2013, I wanted to go outside of India. I wanted to pursue my master's in the US, as 80% of the country wants to. I gave my GRE and all of these things. And 2014, my research paper on cognitive learning using AI, it got selected at a conference in Paris. So it was in the International Journal of Machine Learning and Computing. So we submitted our paper, and then it got approved. It got accepted. And that's when I saw the first opportunity to just visit another country, just to get a feel for it, right? And at that time, my co-authors did not want to join me. They couldn't join me for whatever reason, because it was expensive or whatever reason. So I ended up doing a solo trip. My first trip outside of India and my first solo trip I did to Europe. So in Paris, I went to also Amsterdam and Brussels. So these cities and countries are close to each other. So I thought, if I'm going there, I might as well do a month-long trip and do it. So that was the first sort of taste of what it can be to go outside. And then I came back. I had no plan of moving here, no direct openings that I had. I just had a taste of how it feels to live outside of India, and then come back. And somehow in that year, 2015, like 2014 is when I went out, and 2015, in that year, I started getting offers from other companies in Germany, in the Netherlands, and so on. Maybe because I had the app on the Play Store that caught people's eye, or I don't know what it was, but people started hiring for the role that I was playing of Android engineer. And I started interviewing. So one of these companies was Spotify. You may have heard of Spotify. SoundCloud was another one. There's another one called Zalando, which I eventually ended up taking an offer from, which is an e-commerce, fashion e-commerce company. So I did not go down the master's path because I felt like after 2 years of A, spending time, B, spending money, I would end up in a similar role after those 2 years. And that's the decision I took. I took the decision to move abroad, not for a master's, but rather for a job, which I think was helpful in my case. Of course, not everyone may have the same path, but that's how it went down. And I went from having no plans of leaving my hometown, Mumbai, to packing my bags and switching countries within like a month. So it was very fast, and a lot of things I left. A lot of things you have to make hard decisions on as well. Leaving things behind is always hard, right? So you may have friendships, you may have other relationships, you may have, things that you grew up with and people that you grew up with that are still there, and you move abroad. But when you move abroad, you have now you've diverged, right? And you may have shared a journey before, but when the divergence happens, that journey is no longer shared. And even if you connect and meet once, and even if you speak on the phone every day, you're still living two different journeys. And that's a reality that I think all of us who move abroad sort of face. So things change back home after you leave home because you now made another place your home. It's good, and it can be also difficult sometimes. But all in all, it's a very enriching experience, I would say. I hope that answers the question.
Just add to that, if you don't mind. You mentioned that your paper on cognitive education got accepted in a convention in Paris. It would be interesting, I think, for parents like me, as well as some of our children are also on this group right now. So what was your journey to then, like when you developed this whole paper on cognitive education? So because then happened the whole abroad thing. But up to then, what was your journey? Like what pathway did you take? What did you study? What profession? Like what courses were you doing? What interests did you have? Thank you.
Right. It was a very vanilla journey, as they say, right? So I finished my school in 2007 and it was an SSC state board school. Then I went to a college, 11th and 12th, Sathe College in Vileparle in Mumbai. You may have heard of it, perhaps. It was the college that my mother went to, and my mom thought it's a very good college. So I also ended up going to that college. Then I did my software engineering bachelor's at Vidyalankar Institute of Technology. It's basically a college under Mumbai University. So again, nothing special, no IITs, no BITs, nothing of that sort. And at Vidyalankar, it was a very interesting time because I was 18, 19 at that time. And that's when I really started making friends, seeing different sets of people, because I never had the same set of people through these different stages. So people from my school were not in my college. People from my school and college were not in my bachelor's. So it was always a new set of friends at all times. And I studied software engineering, and Mumbai University software engineering is not everything but state of the art. So like even in 2010, we were learning about microchips from the 70s and 80s, which were not very helpful for us in anything that we did afterwards. There were some things that were helpful, but also the way they were taught it wasn't very engaging. I ended up not attending more lectures. I ended up bunking more lectures than attending them, basically. And I ended up playing games, during lecture time. Don't do that, please, students. if you find a good teacher, please make sure you can make the best out of that relationship with the teacher, because you will learn a lot from a good teacher. I had some good teachers. I had not so great teachers. It's always a mix, but try to make the best out of every human relationship that you build in college, especially with your fellow students, with your teachers, with your professors, and so on. I actually had 2 backlogs also in college, so I had failed twice, basically. 2 subjects that I didn't enjoy, and also my teachers were not. I didn't have a good relationship with those teachers. I'm not going to say anything about the teachers. It's all on me. But at that point, I said, yeah, I think I want to get this out of the way, and I want to do something cool. And one of the ideas about cognitive learning using AI, maybe I can quickly describe what that idea was about, right? So it's literally about how we learn as humans, right? So if I come across this object, this is a phone, right? Now, let's assume that I've never come across a phone for the first time. And this is the first time I'm actually seeing the phone. And I ask, for example, Sulba, hi Sulba, I've seen something like this, but I don't know what this is. It's more or less rectangular. It's, I don't know, black in shape. It emits light. Do you know about this? So I describe the attributes of an unknown object to one of the people around me. So in this case, Sulba. Sulba tells me, hey, Omkar, this is a phone, and you can do phone calls and you can do WhatsApp messages and everything on a phone. And now I've learned about a phone. And next time I encounter a phone, I'm able to recognize it and I'm able to identify it, basically, because I've experienced it before. And so I'm able to, that's what cognitive learning is. It's recognition-based learning, right? So the project was about having, funnily enough, mobile devices, phones, cognitively identify and recognize objects using their camera. And if they are not able to identify the objects based on their attributes, color, size, shape was what we did, then they ask other mobile devices that may be in the network via Bluetooth as a means of communication and learn from them and are able to identify it in the future later. So this idea actually came from a video game called Mass Effect 2. It was, it's a bit of an older game. Back in the day, 2012-13 was when it was released, maybe even so before. And they had this robotic species, basically, that had a shared intelligence that learned from each other, similar to humans, the way humans do. So I implemented a very basic prototype version of that on mobile devices. And some of that research already we still use in what we do here with Miracle. So that's how the whole journey went. And then the paper came and the Paris trip came and then Germany happened. And then, yeah, here we are. Yes, exactly. It's BioWare and EA, Hamza. Mass Effect 2. I'm going to quickly write that here. I think they also had a trilogy, Mass Effect 1, 2, 3. And it's a sci-fi futuristic sort of a game. And yeah, basically it lets you do, it's a role play game. You can shape the story based on what choices you make during the game. It's a very cool game.
I used to watch my friend play it on his laptop. I'd sit next to him. But I must have been 2013.
Yeah, it was quite some time ago.
I have a question. What is the app that you made that got you known? How did you go about it? Why?
Omkar, one demo, a small demo if possible, or a small video if possible.
Sure, I'm happy to do a demo. Maybe let's maybe have a demo towards the end, so
okay,
all of us can have a look at it. Maybe let's answer the questions first, right?
Yes.
So the question was, what was the app that made me famous? I'm not famous, first of all, and I don't want to be honest. I think it's hard. That's why I built a company, so I can hide behind it. Anyway, the app was actually my first Android app, the 5 million download app, right? It's still alive somewhere. It's on autopilot. It works by itself now. I occasionally need to look at it to keep it updated and everything, but generally I don't really build it anymore. So this was the first Android project that I ever built. So Hello World, as they say, right? It started off as a Hello World project. It started off as a question and answer app. So it was like an IQ test sort of a thing, not anything official, but more just to give you an understanding. Okay, logic, language, logical reasoning, spatial reasoning. How well are you able to answer these questions? And it would give you a score at the end of it. Nothing. It was offline. You could download it, you played it, and you had a score at the end of it. So it's called IQ test. How smart are you? Yeah, don't worry. It's not even if you don't score well on it, it doesn't matter. I never scored well on it, so it doesn't. This was the app, and then initially, like I got my friends to download it and try it out and give me 5-star rating, all of the good things that you do. And after a certain point, I ran out of friends. I didn't have many friends. Maybe after 15, 20 downloads, you really hope the universe, helps you here. So on the first day, I got 10
excuse
downloads.
me?
Yeah.
Okay, is it this?
Did by Plonk game?
I can't see it. Yeah, Plonk
By
games,
Plonk
exactly.
games.
That's me.
Okay, this is they're already Googling.
Actually, so
People are very
I
fast.
even downloaded the Miracle.io app.
Uh-huh.
I have to only now try it. I mean, I saw it on Play Store.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Miracle is the latest project that we are building. So you'll see a lot of things that we are still working on and building, and we'll talk more about it later. So yeah, but then in short, I got lucky. Like first day automatically I got 10 downloads from people I didn't know. Then I got 20, then 50, then 100, then 300. And at some point it started growing exponentially. The highest number of new downloads that I received on IQ test was 13,000 in one day. New download. It was a free app, unfortunately. But we had some in-app purchases later, like you could unlock some things later and so on. But for me, it was not about really making money. It was just about, building an app that people like to use, getting their feedback, seeing what is working well, what is not, improving it, and doing everything, right? From coding it to designing it to doing customer service. When you have so many users, you need to also serve them well. So that's something that I kept doing for 7 years as a hobby project. And then I did some more things. I tried adding multiplayer where multiple people could sort of play or take the same quiz. It was a competition. These sort of things we did. And then at some point I stopped and I started building Miracle.io and so on. That's the short version of the story.
Nice.
Okay, so I think we have one question. So actually we have two questions, one from Kushal and one from Angelin. So Kushal asks about Minecraft, and so I don't understand the question though.
So he wants to basically know about the tournaments and all, and then how to get info about that, because the servers are really big.
Right. So Minecraft servers have been very difficult for me as well, personally, because there are a lot of there can be many mean people on these servers as well. A and B, there are so many people playing it can be very hard to get in. So unfortunately, I don't have a very helpful answer to this question at this point. But I know someone who plays Minecraft very regularly on tournaments. So maybe I'll grab lunch or something with him sometime, and I'll ask this question to him, and I'll pass on whatever he answers to you as well. Sorry, Kushal. There's a question about blockchains that we will answer in a moment. Let's have Angelin's question, right? Hi, I'm 12 years old and I wanted to know if you have a hobby or passion that you want to make a living off, and that passion is something that makes you happy and you want to show it out to the world, and you know it is going to be a success, then is it worth spending your time on? Tough question.
Yeah, because when you build a business and you want it to succeed, and like it's something that makes you very happy. Like, so no one wants you the business to fail, then there'll be like a huge loss from your side. So no one wants that to happen. That is why, is it worth spending your time on?
Unfortunately, the only way to know is to do it, right?
Yeah, but the
That's
problem is that you're spending your valuable time on that hobby, and if that hobby does not succeed as your future career, then what will you do? That's my question.
great. It's a very good question, and it's a very well thought through question as well. So there is something called what the way I like to think about it is there are three areas or three spheres, let's say, right? So something that you want to do, something that you enjoy doing, let's say. So that's one sphere. There is something that you're good at. These two might be different things, right? So you might be very good at, I don't know, doing A, but you don't maybe want to do it. You don't
That's the
enjoy doing
problem
it.
with me. Like, I have a passion for doing art, but then I have all the stuff to do everything. But the problem is, I'm slowly losing interest in it because I feel it kind of boring. After some time, I'll go to a different hobby. Like that, it keeps on changing for me. That is why,
Right.
so I'm not really sure what is that's something I should spend time on, and I can build it, and it will be successful.
One more thing, the third thing that I wanted to mention about. So one is what you want to do. Second is what you're good at. And third is what you need to do. Right. So, and these three things might be different, or you might have some overlaps over here. So I think a good exercise would be to sort of draw these spheres and sort of see where the intersection point is for these three areas. So an example of what you need to do is sometimes there are, young people who need to support their families, for example, and they don't have a choice, right? They need to. And at that point, that becomes, the most important thing in their life. And it doesn't matter what they're good at or what they like. For many people, or for some of us, that's not the biggest problem at our age, let's say when you're 12, 13, right?
Yeah.
And in that case, you can focus more on what you like and what you are good at, because that's what they say, right? Like when often there is a market for everything, as they say. And in the end, even if it's a niche market, if you're very good at something, then you will be successful, is how generally I would think about it. Now, I wouldn't worry too much about picking one thing and doing it and worrying that, oh, what if this doesn't work? Because if it doesn't work, you will pick something else and you will do it. And that's fine.
Yeah, because I have no clue what my future holds for me. And I have many upon many interests to think about. And I'm not sure whether this one will succeed or that one will succeed. I have no idea. That's the problem.
So I think it's also important to understand what does success mean for you for each of these things, right? So I think it's important to manage expectations first. Like when you say success, what does that mean?
To me, I feel like, I want my success to be that, supposing I grow up and I just end up being some bank worker, something I don't enjoy. That is not success for me, even though I earn a big living. For me, it's mostly like something that makes me happy and I want to keep it going. That is success for me.
Great. I think it's also, and this is a very good answer, I think it's also important to understand that the definition of success also changes as you grow, right? What you feel is success for you right now, when you become successful according to this definition, by that time, the definition of success will have changed in some form or the other. So I think that's what I've seen personally as well. You're always chasing the butterfly, right? And I think it's okay. It's not a bad thing, but I think it's important to know that the definition of success can change. Sometimes it doesn't, and it's okay. I think it's very good that you have thought about what you don't want to do, at least some aspects of it. That's a very
Yeah,
good
but
start.
like what, let's see, I have like so many interests. Like I do gymnastics, I do art, I do sometimes piano, sometimes this. I don't exactly know what I'm supposed to focus on. And when I find like recently, not recently, a few days ago, I found gymnastics and I stuck to that hobby. I became flexible. After that, it became tiring and tiring as each part of your body gets used to it later and later. But all I want to know is that that hobby or that passion is worth your time, because you can't, like when you grow up, you can't just use a last possible minute as creating your success. Then it might not even be called success. That's why.
Be called success by who?
By myself, by
By
other
myself.
people.
So you're the best judge, Angel.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think, like I said, it starts with what you call it success. And I would say that it's hard. It's a hard choice, what you described, right? It's not easy for sure.
Not at all.
At this point, I wouldn't worry too much about the commercial success at this point, right? At this point, it's important. Like if I were you, I would say success would be knowing among these 5-10 things that you're doing, which of them give you the most joy. That's success for me already. That's the first stage of success. Once you reach there, then it might be a good way to think about, okay, now I enjoy this and I'm reasonably good at it. How can I get better at it so I can make a living out of it? And some professions objectively are hard to make a living in, like music, for example. Today, the music industry is extremely hard to make a living in. You saw the picture from before, right? I wanted to be a musician in a very niche domain.
Yeah.
I started teaching guitar. Actually, I was teaching guitar at the age of 18. But I realized then, I thought that, yeah, maybe I do enjoy playing the guitar, but maybe as a hobby, right? Because I don't see myself being a commercial success given the situation around me. And sometimes it's also okay to accept that. Like, that does not mean failure in that case. I would actually consider it a success because I was able to make a living in a different way, but still keep my love for playing the guitar and playing music. Because if you play the guitar to make a living, for example, it can be very tiring, and it can be, I don't know, depending on who you ask, I maybe would have lost the love for it, and I would have, thought about it as a chore or as a task. But I was able to keep it alive somehow because I didn't need to depend on it to make a living. So that's how I thought about it. And now I'm playing drums, for example, as I've dropped the guitar, and now I want to learn how to play drums because my ankles have started to hurt as I'm getting old.
Yeah,
So now is a
that
good
was
time.
actually my other question. Like,
Yeah.
supposing I'm at the age of 26 and I have built a very big and successful fashion industry, and after that, it doesn't really bring me as much as joy as it did before. And I want to start building something new. I want to explore something better. So, but then I can't build, like I already have a fashion industry and I'm already at the age of 26, and it will be more and more difficult to build another company worldwide. Like let's take McDonald's for example. It has created so many like shops everywhere around the world, like that. That's very hard to achieve.
It is. Building a business is very, very hard to achieve, right? So if any one of you is thinking of being a businessman or business person, the odds are very low of you being successful. So you should walk in with that. Like chances of success are less than 5%. Right? Long-term success.
Yeah, it's really hard to achieve something.
It is. It is. It's very rewarding in many different ways, but it's extremely hard. And you wake up thinking about it, you go to sleep thinking about it, and it can mess with you in many different ways. You learn how to keep the separation as well. To answer your question, if you already have something that's reasonably successful, let's say, what if you need to switch? I think it's if you're in that position, you're in a very good position.
Okay.
Because you have the privilege to, I don't know, go do something else because you've made one thing successful already. And it's giving you the cushion of comfort, let's say, to make these kind of choices. Many people don't have this choice of switching careers. And many people end up not doing it at all because they don't have that choice. And then they retire at the age of whatever, 60, doing one single job and just doing it. It's again, it's not wrong or bad or better or worse. It's just one way of living a life. And but in the end, if trying different things is what you enjoy, because I enjoy that. I enjoy speaking to different people. I enjoy speaking about different things to different people. And what is a profession that lets me do that without really needing to do it? You know what I mean? Like depending on it. So for me, like building a business is a great way to do it because you speak to so many people, you speak to so many customers, you build a team, you do interviews, you are in business meetings, you need to worry about different kinds of things, and gives you, like, you get hit by bullets, as they say, right, all the time, and you're full of holes at the end of it. But it makes you a stronger person. And the second business or the third or the fourth business that you will start will be a bit easier after the first one. The first one is the toughest, is what they say. And I'm only in my first one. So,
yeah, but like I said before, switching careers is really hard. So supposing my fashion industry has fallen down and I'm already at the age of 26. So but in the age of 26, like after few years, like 30, 40 and all, can I still achieve a big company as I did before with spending my time and making it valuable?
Yeah, that's what he said, na, Injiran, that you
Yeah.
at any given point, if you're in that position where you're able to switch, you're pretty much, it's pretty much possible to do that, right? And there are many people who do that actually. So I also feel that right now is not the correct time for you to even think about it because you're too young right now. So let that not be a limiting factor for you to start thinking that, okay, what if I fail? Let that thing not be a starting point for you as of now, because you're too young right now. So I think just relax, enjoy the moment, just take one day as it goes. And because by the time you reach 26, there will be hundreds of choices that will be in front of you. So I think it's too soon for you to even start thinking about something so negative. So stop it. Don't think negative.
Yeah, I would say the same. And one last thing to add on to the discussion is, if you are questioning yourself about whether your time is valuable, then you already have an answer, because you don't see value in it, or you question the value that you're getting out of that activity or that task or that whatever. And that's already your answer, right? So, and if you have the choice to not do it then and do something else, then I think you're, like I said, you're in a very privileged position in that sense to be able to do that. So I wouldn't overthink it at this point.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
All right. So we'll just take one last question before we end, because we are way off schedule today. We are over 1 hour. And I know this is a working day. Yeah.
45 minutes.
Okay, so this question actually is related to the current, like the current market. Okay, so about blockchain. So there is something called Bitcoin, NFT. My question is that how can you rely on it? Like, see, it's not something that you can hold. I mean, it does exist, like Bitcoin. You cannot hold it in your hand, and NFT you can't hold it. It's like, how can you trust that it will be something good if you want to invest in it?
So you're saying that just it's not tangible, as in you can't.
Yeah, like if I say that if I own NFTs, like, why are people so dependent on it? Why is it so hyped up?
It's a very good question. So NFTs is a very it's a very specific term, and let's talk about the idea of blockchain maybe quickly, right? This can go into a long discussion. So let's limit this at 2 minutes, Sulba, please. If I take longer than 2 minutes, let's take this separately.
Yes.
So the idea of blockchain is that, or the idea of any currency for that matter, is that it needs to be hard to create more of. And that's one of the reasons why gold is such a good asset, right? It's hard to create more gold or mine more gold because there's limited reserves. It's reasonably hard to set up a gold mine and mine more gold. So therefore, many currencies from a long time ago were based on the gold standard. You may have heard of this term.
Yeah.
Now, similarly, the way blockchain works is it works by mining prime numbers. So if you may know about prime numbers, the higher you are up in the number, like it's much harder to find prime numbers that are 8, 10, 12 digits large. So it becomes progressively harder to find new prime numbers. And there is somewhat a finite supply of it, or at least based on the computational capacity of today. So therefore, the new form of currency that blockchain is it's based on the same as the gold standard, except that blockchain can be moved, or prime numbers can be mined decentralized. You don't need a blockchain mine that needs infrastructure and everything. You can do it on your computer, on your phone. So that makes blockchain-based currencies a theoretical superior currency as compared to the currency standards of today. The second part, this is the science of it, right? The finance part of it. And a very important part of currencies, how many people believe in it? Right? People today, US dollar is a standard because people believe in it. The US dollar is not based on gold. The US can print US dollars tomorrow and there will be flood the supply. Right? That happens a lot actually. That's one of the reasons why the economy is the way it is today, is because people have stopped slowly believing in the US dollar, some parts of the world. So that remains to be seen how and what that evolves into. Maybe we'll have some sort of a blockchain-based alternative currency. Maybe we won't. We'll see. So I do invest in blockchain for what it's worth. I do believe in the power of it, but at the same time, I see that it's a very volatile asset. So I invest what I can lose.
Even I was also just like researching and all. I mean, it is something quite different and something new.
Yeah.
And if you actually look into it a lot, I mean, people actually make millions of and thousands of dollars just sitting right on their bed and on their laptop.
Yeah, there's also survivorship bias, right? So you only hear about the good stuff. Keep that in mind. That
people even make a lot of losses.
Yes, people don't want to talk about their bad decisions. People only talk about their good decisions.
Yeah.
So you will disproportionately hear more about the good news of these kind of things than the bad news. So it's important to sort of know what you're getting into. And I think for most people, it's a bit too early to invest in the blockchain-based currencies. But I think I would recommend you all to read about it and be in the know about it, because it enables a lot of things going forward. Okay, I think we have one more question from Dola about, let's take this as the last question and then conclude the session, right? It's what we discussed previously with Angeline. The question of livelihood and livelihood linked to one's passion. And how did I deal with this with my family? This is also a very difficult question. I actually had fights with my parents about how I want to live my life or what I want to do. Maybe, just maybe, that might have been one of the drivers for the decision to move countries as well. But actually, I'm closer to my parents now than I was ever before. Distance makes the heart come closer, as they say, right? I mean, all of us, many of us are from, India, and we all know in India there is an unsaid sort of path of life, right? So you, by the age of whatever, 18, you get into some sort of a degree college. By the age of 21, 22, you have a degree. Then either you go for a master's degree, you go for a job, then you buy your car, then you buy your house, then you get married, then you have kids. it's a very clearly defined pathway, right? Many people don't even think about it and they just walk down it. Many people want to go down that path, which is also fine. Many people, just because they don't like to be told what they want to do, they don't want to do it. I'm one of those people. I often, in the past, now I'm more open to it, but in the past, I did not enjoy when people told me what I should do in my life. Yeah, call it stubborn, call it naive, call it whatever else, but that's just how it was. In the end, for me, it turned out okay, I would say. But in the end, I feel like life is the best teacher as well. So no matter how much I will tell you or your parents will tell you, but what they think is right for you, you will only learn what is right for you after you do it and realize it's not how it is. So don't think a bit, but do eventually is how I would think about it. I think my parents also sort of lived that sort of a life. They are very conservative. They were very conservative government employees. Mom was in state, central government. Dad was in state government. So very different kind of a life than what I live at the moment. But at the same time, they did not get stuck in analysis paralysis, as they say. It's important to analyze, it's important to think and think through, but it's also important to not try to evaluate each and every single possibility because you don't have all the information yet until you take the first step. The first step will also give you more information and let you calibrate your decision after that. It's okay to change your mind. Healthy people change their mind is how I like to think about it. That it's important to have that open mind. Strong opinions, loosely held is how I try to live, basically. So I don't know if that answers that question, but that approach helped me a lot dealing with parents and people around.
I think that's a very inspirational response from you. Thanks.
Thank you. I think I'm sure there are many more questions and I'm sure we've skipped a few along the way. But yeah, I hope this was helpful and it was enjoyable. We have quite a lot of work on our side now to figure out who asked the most questions and who asked the most interesting question. So we'll come back, we'll take some time with the team and we'll come back to you, Sulba, and we'll also make sure that we send out our gifts to the winners.
Right.
Great. Then thank you everyone from Miracle and thank you Sandbox team for setting this session up for us to interact, all of us together. For me, I really enjoyed it and it was really helpful for me as well to speak to the students and the parents.
Yeah, thank you so much, Omkar, for taking out time and actually patiently answering every child's question, what is coming to their mind, because it's very important that these questions are answered by somebody. I know like while growing up we didn't have mentors to talk to us or tell us that look, what you're doing is fine. So it gives a lot of encouragement to our young children here to just hear that from somebody, and especially like a person like you who has found his way, who's found his passion, and today is successful at whatever he's doing because he's living his life of passion. And Sandbox is all about exploring these possibilities and bringing forth these kind of people who can inspire these young children. So thank you so much. We are honored to have you and looking forward for much more inputs from you on the way. And the demo is pending, but we will organize a separate session and we'll talk about, so this is for everybody. Sandbox is soon going to get associated with Miracle and we are working on something which is going to be very beneficial for our children. So we will be organizing a separate demo on that. And that time we will take you through what we plan to do for the children and how we plan to do it. So we are just to help you understand, we are going to bring the whole XR experience into our day-to-day lives soon. So we will announce that session soon and would love to have all of you back. And thank you for the audience also for joining and the Miracle team, of course.
Pleasure was all ours. And yep, have a good rest of the day, all of you. And see you soon. And we'll be back with everything that the open questions that we have, the schools and so on, and the winners of, well, everyone is a winner, but the participants who will be getting the gifts from us today.
Yes.
Great.
It's a
Well,
very
thank you very
nice
much.
session.
Thank you, Omkar. Thank you,
sir.
Shilpa.
Thank you so much.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.